Hey there, wake up. It's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. on the East Coast, I'm Sam Sachs. It's the Friday show, and here are today's stories given to me by a man claiming to be D.B. Cooper. And we begin with some good news out of Jersey. New Jersey's 11th congressional district, that is. There are still votes left to be counted, but progressive Ana Lilia Mejia is poised to be elected to Congress. The contest was to fill a U.S. House seat left vacant by former Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, who was recently elected governor of New Jersey. But the interesting story emerging here is that the far right-wing American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, meddled in the race to try to block moderate Democrat Tom Malinowski from winning. Malinowski, also a former congressman, has been a longtime reliable supporter of Israel's interests. He's received support from AIPAC in the past, but as the genocide in Gaza raged and it became politically toxic to give unfettered support to the government committing that genocide, Malinowski suggested it might be time to start conditioning future military aid to Israel. And so AIPAC spent millions of dollars to make sure he doesn't get elected in New Jersey. The group dropped over $4 million in negative TV ads and mailers against Malinowski in hopes that the more pro-Israeli candidate in the race, Tahisha Wei, would win. But it appears the result of that campaign is that someone even more opposed to AIPAC's interests is going to win. Mejia, a former staffer in Bernie Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign, has called what's happening in Gaza a genocide. She's currently ahead by a few hundred votes over Malinowski, while AIPAC's preferred candidate, Wei, is in a distant third. Mejia's success in the race could be a sign that AIPAC is cooked. It was once a formidable force in politics that could get members of Congress to bend to its will. But the ongoing genocide in Gaza has diminished that influence, especially among Democrats, where the left's anti-genocide activism is breaking the Zionist stranglehold on the party. Point is, Democrats should no longer fear the pro-genocide AIPAC. And they should also campaign against ICE and reject the advice from the more moderate wing of the party to just reform ICE. Malinowski was criticized for a vote back in 2019 that supported ICE funding. Meanwhile, this was Mejia's message to voters.
All the Americans and all the human beings who have suffered under this rising tyranny deserve justice. And I say, abolish ICE now! You can't reform that! It's not fixable. Get it out. Kick it over. It is gone. Forget it. Abolish ICE.
Hey, gotta say, it resonates. As evidenced by what went down at an AEW wrestling event in Las Vegas this week that had to be briefly paused because the entire crowd was chanting, "Fuck ICE." Everywhere you look, there are signs that nature is healing. And Woke 2 is on the horizon. All right, next up, the CIA is up to something shady. Because of course it is. Senator Ron Wyden is on the Intelligence Committee. And this week, he released to the public a short, cryptic letter that he sent to the head of the CIA, John Ratcliffe. It reads simply, quote, "Dear Director Ratcliffe, I write to alert you to a classified letter I sent you earlier today in which I express deep concerns about CIA activities." Okay. That would imply the existence of another letter, not released to the public, that lays out some nasty shit the Central Intelligence Agency is up to. I mean, the last time Ron Wyden was talking like this It was because he caught wind that the NSA was vacuuming up everyone's communication metadata. It led to Edward Snowden eventually coming forward. Asked later to elaborate, Wyden told HuffPo, quote, "The reason I sent the public letter is that is all that I'm allowed to say publicly, and I'm going to leave it at that. I said what I did for a specific reason. I wrote it for a specific reason. That's all I can say." The ranking Democrat on the Intel Committee, Senator Mark Warner, is also aware of whatever is going on and told reporters he shared Wyden's concerns and has taken them to the CIA director personally. The cool thing about being a member of Congress is something called the speech or debate clause that allows you to read or say whatever you want as long as you consider it part of your official legislative duties. That means Senators Wyden and Warner, as overseers of the intelligence community, aware of concerning activities, can disclose what those activities are to the public without any criminal or civil penalty. They're like the only people who can do this. And it's been done before. Senator Mike Gravel with the Pentagon Papers back in June 1971. That case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the justices were like, yeah, he can do that as long as it's part of his legislative work. I have no doubt the CIA is up to something deeply concerning, but I have to wonder just how concerned you really are if you won't tell us about it. Instead, these senators are going to make some poor whistleblower do it in a few years and have to spend the rest of their life in jail or fucking Pyongyang. So, come on, Ron. Do something cool. Spill the beans, dog. Finally, there's news out of the Transportation Department that AI systems will be used to actually write regulations. ProPublica reported on a new department initiative that encourages employees to use AI when drafting rules. The idea being that these chatbots can generate new rules faster than people. The outlet detailed a presentation by the department's general counsel, Gregory Zerzan. Quote, Zerzan seemed to suggest that the Department of Transportation was at the vanguard of a broader federal effort, calling the department the point of the spear and the first agency that is fully enabled to use AI to draft rules. Zerzan appeared interested mainly in the quantity of regulations that AI could produce, not their quality. We don't need the perfect rule on XYZ. We don't even need a very good rule on XYZ, he said, according to the meeting notes. We want good enough, Zerzan added. We're flooding the zone. Good enough. Flood the zone. This isn't government by AI. This is a government by lazy dipshits. If you want to know where the real scary AI stuff is going down, it's at the Pentagon. That's where the anxiety should be focused. Under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the department is incorporating more AI systems, including Elon Musk's chatbot/porn generator, Grok. Pentagon also has a contract with AI company Anthropic and its model known as Claude. Anthropic is reportedly getting antsy about how the U.S. war machine plans to deploy their technology, so much so that a $200 million contract the company announced last year with the department is now on the rocks, according to the Wall Street Journal. Quote, tensions with the administration began almost immediately after it was awarded, in part because Anthropic's terms and conditions dictate that Claude can't be used for any actions related to domestic surveillance. That limits how many law enforcement agencies, such as Immigrations and Customs Enforcement and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, could deploy it, people familiar with the matter said. Anthropic's focus on safe applications of AI and its objection to having its technology used in autonomous lethal operations have continued to cause problems. And Reuters added, quote, in its discussions with government officials, Anthropic representatives raised concerns that its tools could be used to spy on Americans or assist weapons targeting without sufficient human oversight. The Pentagon has bristled at the company's guidelines. Unlike Grok, which will fulfill whatever murder fantasies Pete Hegseth has, Claude is more sophisticated and doesn't want to engage in the brutalities of war. At least that's how the owners of the company view their mission. Internal documents reported on by the Washington Post revealed the motivation behind an Anthropic project to feed millions of books into its computer models. A co-founder said it was essential so that Claude would know how to write well instead of mimicking the, quote, low-quality internet speak. To make it happen, Anthropic purchased millions of books and shredded them to make the pages easier to be scanned and fed into their computer models. Millions of books destroyed so that their chatbot could have a more refined personality. And this is supposed to be one of the good AI companies. The country has a problem, and we're here to solve it by shitting all over the ruling class. Let's get to it. This week's rich dick is Scott Bessent. The billionaire U.S. Treasury Secretary has been going around bragging about his role in destabilizing the government of Iran through starving and impoverishing the Iranian people with sanctions. Here was Bessent at Davos a few weeks ago.
President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked. Because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports, and this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft.
And then this week, Bessent took credit for the unrest in Iran again while testifying before the House Financial Services Committee.
President Trump, upon entering office, instructed U.S. Treasury to implement a maximum pressure campaign, and we saw the fruits of that campaign in December as the Iranian economy has collapsed. Yeah. We had a large bank collapse there. The central bank was forced to bail it out, created inflation, and the brave Iranian people have taken to the streets.
Yeah, they took to the streets, and then what? I obviously do not support the U.S. policy of pushing regime change in Iran. But if I was someone who did, why the hell would I brag about its success right now? These protests that Bessent is taking credit for didn't topple the Iranian government, which is the stated goal here, and at least 3,000 people died in those protests. So all Bessent has accomplished so far is immiserating the Iranian people and the deaths of thousands. The Iranian sanctions regime has been devastating for people, especially in how it's limited prescription drugs and medical equipment. Given that, I'd ask, how does Bessent sleep at night? But I already know how billionaires sleep at night. Upside down. Fucking bloodsuckers. But Bessent's portfolio doesn't just include toppling the government of Iran. He's also tasked with spreading lies to justify the administration's mass deportations. During that same House Financial Services Committee hearing, Bessent claimed that immigrants are the reason Whitey can't buy a home.
I would also note that housing, especially for working Americans, a Wharton study has shown that the mass unfettered immigration, adding 10 to 20 million new people demanding housing, Congresswoman, is what caused a great deal of housing inflation for working Americans. So you and the Biden administration should be ashamed.
Wrong. Not true. First off, there aren't 20 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. That's an exaggerated figure the administration frequently claims to justify mass deportations. Second, the author of that Wharton study Bessent mentioned later told the New York Times that his study doesn't say what conservatives are claiming, and that, quote, there are many reasons why we have an affordability crisis, and immigration is probably not even close to the most important one. The actual reason for surging home prices are a rapid increase in demand for housing during the pandemic, a spike in interest rates that made mortgages unaffordable for new buyers, rich people owning too many damn homes, including large institutional investors, developers focusing exclusively on building high-end luxury housing to maximize their profit margins, and the failure of the government to build new, affordable housing. Bessent knows all this, but he's class allies with all those forces conspiring to make homes unaffordable for working class families, so instead, he's scapegoating immigrants. Bessent is also set to be the guy who cuts the president a $10 billion check from the public treasury. Trump is suing the IRS for $10 billion over the leak of his tax returns in 2020. And during a separate hearing in the Senate this week, Bessent said he's not involved in the lawsuit, but as Treasury Secretary, he'd sign the check for Trump.
Do you have any final say at all in the process of this? Or is the DOJ just going to instruct you to cut a check and or settle, and you have no independence to actually make a decision whether or not the president deserves $10 billion?
Again, that is a DOJ matter.
And so the DOJ will entirely make that decision if and whether or not the president should receive $10 billion. You have no say at all.
Correct.
So you will just have to write the check if you were told to write the check.
Correct.
So a hunk of the taxes you pay this year won't just go toward funding a genocide in Gaza and blowing up fishing boats in the Caribbean, but straight to the Trump family's pockets, courtesy of Scott Bessent. You know, you have to be up to some really disgraceful behavior to win the Rich Dick Dishonors on a week in which your competition is a bunch of billionaires exposed as pedophiles in the latest Epstein release. But I think Bessent deserves it. Besides, he's also hanging out with pedophile defenders too. Bessent appeared with washed rapper Nicki Minaj in a video promoting Trump's new child savings account program. Bessent just stands there as Minaj sings Bees in the Trap. Minaj has turned to MAGA in a desperate bid for relevance again, and also because it's a welcoming home for sex offenders and rapists. Minaj's husband is a registered sex offender, convicted of raping a teenage girl in the 1990s. And Minaj's brother is in jail for raping an 11-year-old girl. An 11-year-old. Extremely sick shit that Minaj has regularly defended. These people are like moths to the flame. Moths being pedophiles and the flame being the Republican Party. Anyway, Scott Bessent. He's this week's Rich Dick. All right, friends, the show ends today with a sunrise from Perry, Oklahoma. It was sent in by Byron from the rock band The Damn Quails. Enjoy. Thank you, Byron. Love the band name. That's the show. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the team behind the scenes. Find more MMN at means.tv. We also have YouTube and podcast channels, and you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. One day, capitalism will fall. I promise. It will. But until then, we're going to be right here. See ya next week.